we have rolled out this new series, Updates from the Trenches, where we keep you updated on the white-hot issues, the Jerusalem Consulate Crisis, the Burlington Affliction, the Afghanistan Nightmare, the Uyghur Genocide, and many others.
And now, The Edwin Black Show. Sponsored by the books of Edwin Black, available on Amazon and at booksellers worldwide. And now, here's Edwin.
Welcome to the Edwin Black Show. I'm Edwin Black, investigative journalist and historian and author of IBM and the Holocaust War Against the Weak and many other books. If you like what this show is doing, tell a friend. Subscribe for passwords at theedwinblackshow.com. If you want to support our work, go to theedwinblackshow.com/support. That's theedwinblackshow.com/support. I can use the help. We're happy to have solidarity today from many national organizations such as JNS, Stand With Us, EMET, American Association of Jewish Lawyers and Jurists, Scholars for Peace in the Middle East, VOA Michigan, the Israeli American Consul, and many others. We welcome guests I see today from across America. We have Germany, I see Australia, Great Britain, Canada, Israel, of course, many, many more. Plus, our three watch parties are in attendance. They're in the Villages, Newton, Massachusetts, and my hometown of Chicago. If you have a question limited to today's topic, place one sentence, repeat one sentence in Zoom's QA feature. No comments or opinions, please, because then we can't see the question. The Edwin Black Show is growing globally. We speak frankly and without partisanship to a fragmented world, seeking better understanding of our tormented past, our present very, very tense, and a future still uncertain. Today, we inaugurate a new periodic feature at the Edwin Black Show. It's called Updates from the Trenches. Simply put, our show dives into some of the most tendacious and controversial topics of our day, and we often anticipate them a week or two in advance. But we care about these white-hot topics long after the show airs. We are committed to these topics. So first, we spend a lot of time editing the episodes with stunning and informational super graphics, and they go up on our YouTube channel and also into the episode homepage at the Edwin Black Show, where they become permanent documents for hundreds of viewers who visit them each week to catch up on what they missed. Second, we have a feature in each episode homepage called Show Notes, which increasingly becomes a topic update center for developments on the controversy. Those show notes, now found at the bottom right, will soon be migrated into full resource pages for anyone to easily hit after show developments. Third, we have rolled out this new series, Updates from the Trenches, where we periodically keep you updated on the white-hot issues we tackle and you care about. And we'll take your further live questions. For example, the Jerusalem Consulate Crisis we covered last week, the Burlington Affliction, where that Vermont city deliberately afflicted Jews during the high holy days, the Ben and Jerry's Boycott Backlash, the Afghanistan Nightmare, the Durham Investigation, the Uyghur Genocide, and many others. So let's get right to it. We have a lot to cover. We start with the Jerusalem Consulate Crisis. You will recall the Biden administration is now pressuring Israeli officials to abandon Israel's sovereignty over the entire city of a unified Jerusalem. The first step is opening an illegal and illegitimate consulate to the Palestinians in the heart of Jerusalem. That move has outraged many in the Jewish community worldwide and among the Israeli populace. We and others have called upon the three main movers in this process. That is Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and his two anti-Israeli cohorts, Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Israel and Palestinian Affairs, Hadi Amir, and National Security Council Director for Israel, Palestine Affairs, Julie Sawyer, we call upon all three to immediately abandon efforts to open an illegal and illegitimate consulate to the Palestinians in Jerusalem. If you must open such a facility, do so in Ramallah or Abu Dis, which is just across the way from Jerusalem, but not on a grown street around the corner from the Waldorf Astoria in the heart of Israel's eternal capital of Jerusalem. What's happened since? Numerous grassroots and independent Jewish organizations have mounted a protest movement representing all segments of the Jewish community, the Israeli public, and the Christian Zionist community. Various independent and grassroots Jewish organizations are mobilizing to make our voices heard. Media outlets are covering the topic, especially JNS. A public demonstration was just held on Jerusalem's Agron Street, directly in front of the now shuttered consulate. Various petitions are floating around, especially the one at stoptheconsulate.org, stoptheconsulate.org, and theirs is being circulated through change.org. Keep up the pressure by sharing and signing these petitions. Thus far, 8,000 have signed, and 260,000 people worldwide have viewed that petition. You can see more about this at show notes on the edwinblackshow.com. Next, we recall that Ben & Jerry's imposed a boycott on Israel. The backlash was swift and sure as international lawyers and anti-Jewish hatred groups scrambled. Ben & Jerry's, steered by anti-Israeli executives within their corporate structure, is now feeling it, as is their feckless corporate owners, Unilever. A Jewish wellspring has spurned Unilever's brands, such as Dove and Hellmann's mayonnaise. More importantly, are the state government divestitures and product boycotts. New Jersey and Arizona have pulled a combined $325 million from Unilever. Texas is working on a many $million-dollar divestiture and product boycott, which will probably come to fruition in the coming days. Add in North Carolina and Illinois, and this backlash is starting to add up to $1 billion. Florida pulled $135 million. New York's Mammoth Investment Fund yanked $111 million. Other states are following up, and this will soon amount, as I say, to $1 billion plus backlash. Keep it up and see more at our show notes. Third, we go to the Uyghur genocide. By now, the entire world knows that China is committing a massive million-person genocide against the innocent Uyghur Muslims. Communist China now operates numerous concentration camps, slave labor factories and farms, forced sterilization mills, and child separation and re-education centers. You will recall that I called out the cowardly NBA and its chief coward, LeBron James, who refused to speak up against their communist Chinese benefactors. These fake social justice warriors take a knee for equity, and that knee lands on the neck of the Uyghurs, whose enslaved men, women, and children produce the cotton, the t-shirts, and the blood-stained Nike shoes the NBA colludes with and draws millions of dollars in profits from. But two heroes at the NBA have appeared. Utah Jazz center Rudy Gobert plus Turkish-American Enes Kanter of the Celtics. Both have come out staunchly to protest the blood money profits Nike and the NBA are reaping, and against the crimes of China communists against Uyghurs. This is courage. Celtics games have been pulled from China because of the criticism that these men have made about the Uyghurs and also Tibet and Hong Kong. These two guys by themselves have swished from the three-point zone on the court of moral integrity, while LeBron, the coward, cannot even hit the backboard. Once again, see more at our show notes. Fourth, as I obtained prosecution materials from the John Durham Special Investigation into the Russia hoax, I knew immediately the scope would not be limited to a single Democratic Party operative and attorney, Michael Sussman, who allegedly conspired to lure the FBI into a false investigation of a completely non-existent Donald Trump server in connection to a Russian bank. You will recall that the highest levels of the Democratic Party machine floated a completely fake story about Trump colluding with the Russians, this to sway the election. Actually, it was the Democrats colluding with the Russians to smear former President Trump. It was former British MI6 spy Christopher Steele who relied on Russian operatives to put together much of the so-called Steele dossier. In fact, just a few hours ago, Durham's prosecutors arrested Igor Danchenko, the main Russian operative who assembled the Steele dossier. He appears in a Virginia federal court on Tuesday to plead to charges. Again, those charges will be false statements. Just moments ago, just as I was coming on the air, Durham's indictment was unsealed, and it states that on 3 occasions in 2017, that is on March 16th, May 18th, and October 24th, as well as November 16th, so I guess that's 4, Danchenko lied about a phone call, quote, purportedly received from an anonymous caller who he believed to be a particular individual, when in truth and in fact he knew that was untrue, close quote. Strangely enough, just days ago, defeated Virginia gubernatorial Democratic candidate Terry McAuliffe hired election attorney and strategist Mark Elias, a named party in the Durham investigation. This in connection with the big Republican upset we saw in Virginia on Tuesday. I believe that before Durham is done, he will have indicted more than 24 senior Democratic personalities, reaching all the way up to Hillary Clinton's personal circle. Expect more indictments soon, and find out more at the episode homepage on our show notes section. Now, the Afghanistan nightmare has only magnified for that country's people who had a chance to taste democracy. American security and credibility, the threat to the world, it's all expanded. We were told that less than 100 Americans were stranded in Afghanistan. Now I know that number is triple what we were told. Now we also know that what was false is that ISIS was virtually gone from Afghanistan. But in fact, ISIS-K immediately came back with a roar. Just a few days ago, it attacked a hospital, going room to room, murdering people in cold blood, including the children's ward. Earlier this week, ISIS assassinated a senior Taliban commander. Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark Milley now admits that a reconstituted ISIS and Al-Qaeda could be strong enough to attack America on our own soil once again in a spectacular way, and to do so as soon as next spring, perhaps even earlier. He said within 6 months. That could be 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months. Finally, you will recall our show about the China threat. Now we see that China has successfully tested Mach 5 hypersonic nuclear missiles, and done so years before the U.S. will even perfect one. They intend on creating a 1,000 missile nuclear attack complex. They're already carving out the silos. We cannot now, today, detect, let alone intercept, these Mach 5 missiles. So while we were celebrating Pronoun Day and Milley was testifying about white rage, the Chinese were laughing all the way to the exosphere. Russia has the same capability and will do a further test and possible deployment of their hypersonic missiles later this month. Teachers in Flint, Michigan, when I visited there, will remember my private briefings 2 or 3 years ago. I guess it was 2018, 2019, when I predicted our biggest problem would not be Donald Trump's mean tweets, but Russian and Chinese hypersonic nuclear missiles. Well, that's as much awful news as I can cram into one monologue. So now, hit me with your questions. We've already got a bunch, and I'm going to start now. Let's see. Oh my goodness, we have lots of people attending. So we will start with the watch party in the villages. What makes a hypersonic missile more deadly than an ICBM? Well, the ICBM is ballistic. It goes in a predictable and trackable arc. You can literally grab a shot of its trajectory in one place and in another place and predict exactly where it took off from and where it's going to land. In the case of the hypersonic nuclear missile, this is basically a hypersonic glide vehicle. They attach it to a rocket. The rocket goes into outer space and then it detaches. From there, it launches with a nuclear warhead. It goes around the Earth in an unpredictable fashion at Mach 5. It goes high, it goes low, it curves around, and it remains in the exospheric orbit until they decide to bring it down to target. Now, when this test was done, they came within 24 miles of the intended target. If the intended target, then many people know that the number one target for nuclear missiles, either from Russia or China, is Omaha, Nebraska, where the Strategic Air Command has their main base. So what does it matter if they're 24 miles off from either Washington, from Virginia, from Los Angeles, from Nebraska? This is a huge threat. And of course, we would only have 60 seconds, maybe 120 seconds notice. This thing would come in at Mach 5, and that would be the end. And of course, they've got missile silos, and they're planning 1,000 of these within 5 or 6 years, and it's a huge threat. Next, from Newton, Massachusetts watch party. We always count on the watch parties first. Weren't there lawsuits in the Ben and Jerry case? You did not mention them. I did not mention them because I only had a limited amount of time. And so I focused on the boycotts of these many state governments, but many legal actions have been started. And I am personally aware that many other legal actions are about to be started. Basically, Unilever did have the ability to reverse this illegal boycott of Jews and Israelis. And as a result of that, there is going to be major action unfolding in the coming weeks against Unilever, as well as Ben and Jerry's. It's going to be a very, very costly endeavor, but I think it must be done if the next BDSers are going to take notice. And the Jews have to make a stand, and it's not just Jews. The watch party in Chicago. Are anti-Semites in the Biden administration driving the move to establish a consulate to the Palestinians? Well, the answer is yes. The Biden administration is loaded with anti-Semites and loaded with anti-Israeli agitators. I really can't understand that because I know that Biden himself is a strong supporter of Israel. But there seems to be a bifurcated approach in the Biden administration. On the one hand, they're undermining Israel's sovereignty and security by giving hundreds of millions of dollars to the Palestinians who are relying upon that money to pay terrorist salaries, and they're propping up a completely fake administration, government in waiting called the Palestinian Authority. On the other hand, I can tell you that I'm very aware that there are strong elements within the Biden administration that are supporting Israel in its efforts to stand up to the Iranians, including with a military strike. In fact, a B-1 bomber escorted by an Israeli jet just flew over a couple of days ago the Strait of Hormuz. I can't go into more detail, but I can tell you that it's a bit schizophrenic. Right now, if you're concerned about Israeli sovereignty and civilian safety, then you're very upset with all the anti-Israeli personalities that seem to have control over the midsection of the Biden administration. If you're more concerned about the Iranian threat, which is the larger threat, then you are more encouraged. And I am very encouraged for the time being. That encouragement could vaporize in the twinkling of an eye. I'm watching it by the minute. Mohammed in Long Island, do you still believe in the two-state solution? No. And I believe the two-state solution, and others are now saying the same thing, including others in the senior political echelon of France, Germany, the United States. The two-state potential has now come and gone. If there was a real two-state potential, the Palestinians would have shown desire, they would have cooperated long before this. But all the many, many, many millions and billions of dollars that have gone into Gaza, all the many, many millions and billions of dollars which have come in from around the world to the Palestinian Authority, this has not been channeled into civil society, into government structure, into thriving population that lives and breathes peace. Instead, it's been channeled into missiles, into underground attack tunnels. In the case of the Palestinians, hundreds of millions of dollars are devoted to terrorist salaries. Tens of thousands of Palestinians line up each day to go to work in Israel across the Green Line. They make equal wages. They're represented by the same labor unions. And that's because the kleptocracy of the Palestinian Authority is too busy grabbing millions over to friends and relatives of the leadership so they can build their palaces and they can build their castles. And remember, when you make peace, then the revolutionaries are out of a job. The Palestine Liberation Organization is the umbrella group which owns the Palestinian Authority. I'd like to say a couple of other things. Several weeks ago, I started this. I repeated last week, and I'm going to repeat it now. I got $100 to my name, $100. And I've offered $100 to the first person on planet Earth. If Elon Musk is listening, you can include Mars, who can give me one photograph or one headline or document of an enterprise showing that any Arab referred to himself as a Palestinian before 1964. It was only in 1964, when the PLO came into being, that the Arabs finally decided that they would recognize that there was such a place as Palestine, because they spent decades saying that Palestine was a fiction. It didn't exist. And in fact, in 1948, in December, at the Ramallah Conference, the Hebron Conference, and the Jericho Conference, the Arabs, the local Arabs on the ground, repeatedly voted not to have a national identity, but to be subjects of the brand newly independent and invented Jordanian kingdom. So I say this because it was the Arabs who expropriated and stole the term Palestinian from the Jews. Throughout the first half of the 20th century, it was Jews who were known as Palestinians. The Palestine Post, now known as the Jerusalem Post, Jewish Agency for Palestine, now known as Jewish Agency for Israel, the Palestine Symphony Orchestra, the Anglo-Palestine Bank, Palestine, Palestine, Palestine. These were Jews. Jews are the indigenous people of Israel. Remember, Jews are from Judea, and the Arabs are from way the heck over in Arabia. It was the Arabs who conquered. Now, I realize that a lot of people don't have the background, and they're easily suckered by false statements. but I'm going to say it again. I got $100. All you got to do is give me one headline, one UN resolution, one UN document, one enterprise, one photograph that states that Arabs call themselves Palestinians. Let's move on. Carl in Sydney. Carl, what the heck is going on in Australia? I hear you've got a police state going on. It says, what are the most likely charges in the Durham investigation and who will be charged? I believe approximately 24 people will be charged before all is said and done. Many will spend a couple of $1 million on defense until they turn over. The charges are going to be false statements. That's easy to prove. And there will be conspiracy, obstruction of justice, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and many other charges until this stuff ramps up and goes higher and higher and reaches the outer perimeter of the Hillary Clinton circle. Why? Because all these operatives were working for the Hillary Clinton re-election campaign. And eventually they're going to show that they were in direct touch with Hillary Clinton. I don't have any specific names for you, but I think it will involve university professors. I think it will involve several high-tech Silicon Valley and other high-tech companies. And I believe we have not heard the last of this. Just a few hours ago, the third person to be indicted was picked up, and we shall see more. It's true, Durham is quiet, Durham doesn't make any noise, but Durham is methodical. And with COVID and with the thoroughness that he has to undertake, including breaking attorney-client privilege and seizing documents, it has taken years. So far, at least 15 people have been subpoenaed before the grand jury, probably more, and over 80,000 documents were developed just in the Michael Sussman case. There's probably close to 1 million documents now sitting somewhere in the warehouses accessed by the Durham investigation. Okay, and thank you, Carl. And I hope to get back to Australia. Beautiful, beautiful country. Love your movies. Leslie in New York. Is the Biden administration supporting Israel's military plans for Iran? Well, yes, they are, and they're doing it in several ways. They're doing it by providing special munitions. They're doing it by providing special aircraft. They're doing it by show of force. They had a show of force involving the B-1 bomber just a couple of days ago. There was something else that they did, which I can't get into, which was a clear message. And the Biden administration wants Israel to be verbal and vocal about these threats of military action, because the Biden administration really doesn't want Israel to go ahead with a military strike, which is now poised to do. They would rather have Iran come back to the negotiating table. Iran has just announced that it will be ready to negotiate again on November 29th. But remember, no one has perfected the art of the stall more than the Iranians. They can start late, they can adjourn for 4 days. And in the meantime, they are enriching more and more uranium. They have now surpassed the nuclear threshold. That means they have the 25 kilograms per bomb in uranium-235 that they need to create at least one warhead, but they want to create 5. And once they condense that gas, that UF6, into solid material, merge it into metal rods, put in with other uranium metal, create a spheroid, drop it into the warhead, which is the R265 shock generator. If you want to know specifics, just go to Google, type Edwin Black nuke, and you'll see my lead story in the Times of Israel several years ago, where I explained the entire process. So now that they have all the material that they need, the question is, They got enough for one bomb. So if we wait for how much they need for 5 bombs, which is what they want, I suppose it could take another month. If we want to know how long it'll take them to assemble the actual warheads, that will take between 1 and 6 weeks, depending upon the technology that they have. So who wants to wait till the missiles are in the air? I think this is going to be a very important month for this 15-year saga waiting for the Iranian nuclear catastrophe to be solved. Next question. Martin in Tampa. Does the Palestinian Authority want peace, or is that against its interest? Martin, the Palestinian Authority, as I said, does not want peace. If they get peace, they're out of business. A new, truly civilian and representative government would have to be created, and they would lose 20 years or more of confrontation. Basically, there's a financial interest in not making peace. If we turned off the money, as was done by the previous administration, if we did not make a riot and lack of peace and lack of communication a lucrative export, we would have had peace long ago. The best way to have peace is to let the parties on the ground talk to each other, develop relations as they have with each other. Remember, tens of thousands of Palestinians are running around Israel, doing important work, getting important training. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're restaurant owners, they're construction workers, they're at all levels. When you succeed, when you have a slice of the pie, that is more precious than making war and cutting your nose off to spite your face. Next, Sally in San Diego. What is your next book? What is my next book? I cannot tell you, but I will tell you this, and my team is probably looking at me giggling right now. My next book will come out very, very soon, in the twinkling of an eye. We're getting it ready right now. That's all I could say. I do have a next book after this next book. I'm working on 17 books, but the one after that will be Black Victims of Nazi Policy. And you could see the primer for that at the Times of Israel several years ago. I did an elaborate story called Template for the Holocaust. And I promise you, you'll like all of my books. Remember, I sell a book approximately once every hour. Jeff Bezos loves me. I don't love him back, but thank you for asking, Sally. Jeff, just kidding. Stella in Detroit. James Carville said today on NPR that the progressive Democrats are practicing woke lunacy. I heard that. And need to go to a woke detox farm. I heard that as well. How long can the old line Democrats hold out before they are replaced by the Democrats, socialists, and progressives, especially the ones that hate Jews and Israel? This is a very important question. I believe not 2 cycles, but perhaps 1.5 cycles. I believe that the old guard will be out within 2 to 4 years in terms of control of the Congress, and their place will be taken by more and more of the squad and more of the self-declared Democrats, socialists. And this is something that concerns us, because I think the most frightening time for Jewish people in this country may be, perhaps, maybe, guessing, spring of 2026. And I can say more about that later. Let's take some more questions. Ken Abramowitz, Palm Beach, author of a very good book. And that book is, let's see, right here, The Multi-Front War. And he certainly predicted a lot of these developments with China. He says, since the crisis and rapid downfall of the Biden administration, which bad guys might want to take advantage of this mess to challenge U.S. national security in 2022 before the Republicans take over Congress in November 2022. It's widely thought that the Republicans will take over Congress in 2022. We all saw what happened not only in Virginia, but Buffalo, New York, and even Minneapolis, and many other cities and jurisdictions around the country, even in Seattle, as there was huge pushback against the progressive agenda. And the question of whether the Biden administration will last into 22 is also one that's come under discussion, because Biden seems to be very confused. And at the moment, some polls, such as the NBC poll, put his policies at 70% negative or 63% negative. There are different polls every day, and we see that the Hispanics are about 70% against the Biden policy at the south of the border. So there could well be a challenge. And if that challenge comes, it may come from China. Now, we're supposed to be helping defend Taiwan. We're not going to do that. Biden has stated that they will provide Taiwan with all the weapons per our agreement with Taiwan. We'll provide them with all the weapons that are needed, but we will not be in there with our own military. And the way he made that clear was by not confirming what has always been confirmed before, that we will stand with Taiwan, also known as nationalist China. Now, a lot of people seem to think, well, if he's not going to stand with Afghanistan and he's not going to stand with Taiwan, what makes you think he'll stand with Israel? There's a lingering suspicion that I have, based on fact, that the Biden administration will stand with Israel in terms of its nuclear confrontation. And that's because once Iran gets into attack mode with Israel, basically it's World War III, which is what the mullahs want. Remember, those ICBMs that Iran is developing are not to attack Israel. They're intended to attack the United States. And of course, Iran right now has plans to attack United States facilities throughout the region within, say, 1,000, 2,000 miles. In fact, they had a swarm of drones attack a U.S. facility in the Middle East, and the U.S. had to answer back with some military activities. So, Ken, you've written quite a bit about China. You know it's going to be China. I know it's going to be China. But the question is, will it be next year or will it be a different year? You know, jiu-jitsu is not Chinese, it's Japanese. But I can tell you that the Chinese are practicing jiu-jitsu. They're allowing us to use our own weight against ourselves. And when we're weak enough, I don't doubt that they'll take the correct move, or the dangerous move, I should say. But we all hope that never occurs. Rabbi Joel in Utah, do you know what has become of Senator Rand Paul's block of the Iron Dome missiles that were approved for Israel's defense? All of you may remember that there was almost nearly unanimous vote to approve in Iron Dome missile replenishment, and that's because that Israel not only has an Iron Dome, not only see those incoming missiles, it's got to have interceptor missiles. Now, right now, just a couple days ago, Israel has developed a massive, giant balloon, a dirigible, if you will, that's going to go up on its northern border. And even as we speak, they're involved in a huge drill anticipating a war with Hezbollah, which will be a proxy war. So, Rabbi, Israel has got those missiles. And one of the reasons they have the missiles, they have to get the missiles from the United States. And one of the reasons they have to get those missiles from the United States, the aid package specifies that almost 70% of every dollar for armaments has to come from U.S. producers. So Israel can't produce its own Tamir interceptor missiles. Okay, let's get to, we got a lot of questions here. Durham, political corruption. January 6th. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to get into January 6th. We don't have enough information on that. I'm still looking into that question, so I won't be answering any January 6th. Durham investigation. Why is Sussman taking all the blame? Christopher Steele is the next spy, and he's being protected by the CIA, and the Clinton campaign financed him and his dodgy dossier. So Sussman will not be taking all of the blame. Christopher Steele's main subsource, this Russian guy, Igor, has just been arrested. It's interesting that even the subsource, Donachenko, told the FBI on 3 or 4 different occasions what he finally saw in the dossier was little more than unsubstantiated rumor and bar talk, and even what he gave was transmogrified and discombobulated into allegations that never should have been presented. So I'm not going to take all your many other questions, but we'll probably get a show, an additional follow-up on the Durham investigation. Let's go to the chat. Rabbi Joel in Utah says, good to know about the missile of the Iron Dome. Still not getting through the Senate. Thanks for taking my question. It's a pleasure. Thanks for being with us each week. Here is a question from Wes in that beautiful place known as Walnut Creek, also known as the Bay Area. Do you believe that President Trump's senior advisor, Stephen Miller, is an anti-Semite and a racist? Stephen Miller. I personally know Stephen Miller, and I personally know that Stephen Miller is not an anti-Semite or a racist. Now, you might want to quibble with who is a racist, because now anyone who disagrees with you suddenly becomes a racist, a white supremacist, probably an alien from outer space. I have no idea. But there is no chance that Stephen Miller is an anti-Semite at all. None, zero. And I know that personally. Someone called Amelia. Is there any benefit to the U.S. in having a Palestinian consulate in Jerusalem? All right. I don't know where Amelia is from, but I can say this. It's not legal to have any consulate for the Palestinians. Why? Because there's no such place as Palestine, and the Palestinian Authority is just an operation which was set up by the Oslo Accords in an attempt to create a fast interim agreement between the Israelis and the people who, after 1964, called themselves Palestinians. However, I want to be very careful about this. It would be very beneficial, to have a legation or a liaison office or a special interest office to relate to the Palestinian community, especially the peace-loving Palestinian community. That's what they've had for the longest time. They had a place on Nablus Road. They can go right now to the Palestinian interest section. There are Palestinian consular needs, but more than that, we need an American presence to communicate with the Palestinian community. That is the Palestinian community that actually wants to work for peace. And don't kid yourself. The majority of the Palestinians are sick of this no peace, no war situation, of being robbed blind. They would like to make some kind of peace. What peace that's going to be, it's not going to be a two-state solution, because the Palestinians have thrown that off the table. They've done so with their activities, with their riots, with their terrorism, with their insults, by training a generation, if not 2 generations, of Palestinian children to hate the Jews and to think of Jews as rats and vermin. But I think something can be done, and something significant. Now, remember, it's always possible, if a new administration comes into the Palestinian Authority and proper confidence measures are built, well, there was peace between Egypt and Israel, the peace with the Jordanians, peace with the Sudanese, peace with the Moroccans. Peace is might be coming with the Saudi Arabians very soon. The World Cup is in serious conversation about having a three-nation World Cup in Saudi Arabia, Israel, and Egypt. Israel was an enemy of Bahrain and the UAE. That's over now. They're very good friends. Hey, look at this. The Japanese, they beheaded Americans in the Death March. They bombed Pearl Harbor. They bombed Australia. They ran brutal labor camps. They tortured Americans in the worst way, that the rape of Nanking. Now Japan is an ally. Everyone would like to see peace between the Israelis and the Arabs, who since 1964 have called themselves Palestinians. Now, Amelia has another question. Have we required fiduciary responsibility to assure that our taxpayer dollars are going to help Palestinians and not more into the administration coffers? No. Thrown fiduciary responsibility to the wind. We're basically bribing these guys. Whereas Trump tried to bribe the Palestinian people with $50 billion, the Biden administration has decided the people he needs to bribe are not the people who live in the West Bank, but the people who live and work around the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah. And so it's bribery. It's not being done well at all. Here's a question from Rita in Century City. Since Pakistan sheltered top Taliban leadership during the U.S. intervention in Afghanistan, that's true, is there any way to incentivize Pakistan to go into Afghanistan to clean up the mess? This means destroying ISIS and reining in the Taliban's treatment of women. The Pakistanis will not set foot to clear out the Taliban or even ISIS, but what they are negotiating now is headquartering an American base or a kind of a quasi base where the Americans can set up shop and again go into bombing and cross-border raids and try to get some of this stuff. I'm afraid it's gone for Afghanistan. I don't even know if the Taliban will be able to stay in existence in Afghanistan. Probably Afghanistan within a year will be balkanized. There will be the ISIS part of Afghanistan. There will be the Taliban part of Afghanistan, and there might be an Al-Qaeda part. It could be like parts of Lebanon. It could be like parts of Tajikistan. So in the meantime, Pakistan will pick up plenty of bribe money to the generals. And how does that work? It's very simple. We offer to support their programs. Their programs are executed by various generals. The general's cousin, the general's niece, they're all in on the take. All right, Amelia again. Would we be worse off with Harris as president if Biden steps down? I don't think I should comment on that because I think that there's so much instability in the Biden administration and in the House of Representatives and on the lines of succession. I can't really tell you who's going to be around when, but it's quite unstable. Remember, we had a guy called Gerald Ford, and Gerald Ford became the president. How did Gerald Ford become the president? Nixon was out. Nixon's vice president was out. And then the Speaker of the House became the president. Are we absolutely certain that Nancy Pelosi will continue as the Speaker of the House? She's now third in line. She may resign. She may retire. If this current package doesn't get passed, there may be instability in the House. And remember, the Speaker of the House does not need to be a member of the House. It can actually be an outsider if the majority elects that individual. So it's all in flux. Thank you very much, Amelia. Wes in San Francisco, you do not elaborate why you believe that Stephen Miller is not a racist or an anti-Semite. Why is that? Because I know him well. And because he has worked very, very hard for the Jewish people. and for Israel. I know that personally on a face-to-face basis. I know a lot of people in the Democratic establishment, a lot of people in the Republican establishment, and one of them that I know on a hands-on basis is Stephen Miller, and he's absolutely not an anti-Semite. Now, you could say that some of his rhetoric might sound like racist, so we can discuss that another time. Let's see, do we have any more questions? Oh my God, we have so many questions, but I just can't do them all. So I'm going to have to sign off, kiddos. We're out of time. I'll see everyone here next week at 3 p.m. Eastern. You want to be a friend of the Edwin Black Show? Go to theedwinblackshow.com/support. If you're Jeff Bezos, as I say, call me. If you're George Soros, my line is busy for you. Until then, head over to any Barnes & Noble in the USA or any Amazon platform in 190 countries across this planet where you can find any of my 200 book editions, such as IBM and the Holocaust, War Against the Weak, and The Farhood. And soon that will be 211 editions. You want any autographed copies? Hit my personal website, edwinblack.com, and click books. Get passwords and access alerts to participate live in future shows at theedwinblackshow.com. You'll see a much enhanced and produced version of this show and prior episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channel at The Edwin Black Show. And don't forget to click that notification button. You may follow me at Edwin Black Book on Twitter and Facebook. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am zooming out.